This weekend we talked a lot about identity and just how each of us are unique, but God can use that in anything. And ministering to people doesn't always look like being up on stage. It really can be anything. So we spoke to a variety of different women, some with the big titles and then some that are a little bit behind closed doors. And so we have 4 girls today. We did 3 tracks. We did teaching a ladies Bible class, and we did teaching kid-side classes, and then we have a track that is like communication. So like you'll see a video in the service today that they put together, and they created the shirts that the girls are wearing, the pink ones. And we had asked them their preference, just so they could be where they feel like their passion is. And we had 4 brave young ladies, and I'm so super impressed with them. I was like, I'm gonna go take them downstairs and pray with them. And so I mentioned, and they're like, we were already gonna do that. So that just tells you where they're at. They know that they need God through all of this. So we have Emma Johnson and Claire Boyd and Ava Cavender and Hope Robertson that will be speaking today. And then again, thank you. I know several of you have been praying for these ladies. So, all right. And you ready?
Hey, I'm Emma. If you don't know me, I'm the daughter of David and Susan Johnson, and I will be going to Lipscomb University in the fall to major in accounting. I don't know about you, but I've struggled a lot in my life with change, and going from high school to college may be the biggest change I've ever gone through. The main thing that I've worried about is finding my purpose and finding what God has laid before me. And honestly, I'm still not entirely sure what that is, but I'm open to saying yes. When coming to Cultivate, I was given Ephesians 5:8-11 to meditate on, and here's what those verses say. For once you were full of darkness, but now you have light from the Lord, so live as people of light. For this light within you produces only what is good and right and true. Carefully determine what pleases the Lord. Take no part in the worthless deeds of evil and darkness. Instead, expose them. The worthless deeds of darkness. That is a really powerful statement. God has called us and made us for a life of meaning and purpose. The deeds of evil will never lead to fulfillment or a fulfilling life. When we don't look to God for fulfillment, we race to find it in everything else, like achievement, a person, a sport, etc. And it will only lead to feeling more empty. The Greek word for worthless is akarpos, which can be translated to generally useless. Searching for meaning without God is just that, generally and wholly useless. It doesn't matter if we have good intentions with the things that we do. Without God as the reason for everything that we do in our lives, they would be completely useless. When we choose to live in darkness and not the light that God has called us to, we lose sight of ourselves and the person that God has created us to be. We were made to be worthy, and we were made to be workers for His kingdom in everything that we do. During Cultivate, we have looked into finding our ministry and what God has made for us. And there are so many opportunities for us to serve God with our unique gifts and talents. Whether it's serving as the education director, working with refugees, helping child soldiers, running a jewelry business, being a stay-at-home mom, starting a prayer ministry, cutting hair, painting, or just being the light that someone needs in everyday situations. Another segment of these verses is that we are called to be people of light. My definition of being a person of something is that it should define who we are in every aspect of our lives. We are called to be people of faith and people of light, and that should define who we are in all that we do. We are called to be kind, because we are called to be people of light. We are called to love even when it's hard, because we are called to be people of light. We are called to serve, because we are called to be people of light. To be light means that God is with you in every part of your life. He is on your heart and your mind when you're at the gym, when you go get coffee with a friend, or when you go out to lunch with that one person that you really struggle to be kind to. To be light is to show others through your words and actions the love of Christ, that He was willing to die for us so that we would be saved in spite of our sin. This should be evident in the paths that we choose for our lives, because when we say yes to God, We no longer live in the worthlessness of sin and sinful living, but instead we accept and take on who and where God has called us to be. We can find meaning and purpose in our life if we choose to lean into what God has called us to. I'm not sure what the future holds for any of us, but I encourage each of you to be open to saying yes to God. He will always lead you down the path that He made specifically for you. If you are unsure of what your talents are or how to use them for God, ask, and He will put things in your path to help you see more clearly. Any skill or passion that you have was given to you by God, and He can use it for His glory. God has set before us a path specific for each of our lives because He loves us and He made us for a greater purpose. All we have to do is say yes. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, y'all. I'm Claire Boyd. I'm 16, and I've been at college side my whole life, and I'm super blessed to have been a part of Cultivate this weekend. So my verse that I was given was Ephesians 2:4-5, and I'd like to start by reading it. It says, "But God, being rich in mercy, because of the great love with which He loved us, even when we were dead in our trespasses, made us alive together with Christ. By grace you've been saved." So to start to unpack this verse, I'm going to use a story from my own life. Last summer, I'd been struggling a lot with some unresolved anger and identity issues. I didn't know who I was, I didn't know whose I was, and I didn't want to turn to God to find out. So instead of turning to the Lord, I thought that I could do it all on my own, and that if I could just be strong enough, then everything would magically turn out the way that I thought it should be or the way that I wanted it to be. As a result of that, I made a lot of really poor choices, and before I knew it, I found myself in this deep pit that I couldn't get out of, even if I wanted to. But honestly, I think that was part of it, was that I didn't even want to get out of it because I didn't have my identity rooted in Christ to even know that I needed to be freed. So I ran as far away from God as I could, and to say the least, it was an absolute disaster. Everything I knew about myself and who I was had been shattered, to the point that I no longer felt that I recognized myself when I looked in the mirror. My reputation felt ruined. I hated myself for the things that I'd done, and I felt like nothing would be right ever again. But when I was at the bottom, my eyes were opened to the beautiful truth that yes, I had messed up and I was completely broken. But at the same time, I had never been more complete. I was shown by the Lord who I was. I was forgiven, and I had access to His grace because I am His child. That time in my life was definitely the hardest thing that I've ever experienced. But even in that, God pursued me so wildly, and He loved me so much that He lifted His protection just enough that my world would fall apart, but not enough that I would be broken beyond repair. He showed me that what I had done was wrong, but He was there to pick me up when I fell, to bring me back to where I needed to be. He showed me that no matter how badly I had screwed up, I was still valued, and that even when I was dead in all my sin, He had saved me and was still working in me because He had better things for me. He had more for me than my failure, and even more importantly, more than what my shame tried to tell me that I was. The days and months after that were extremely difficult. I was deeply, deeply hurt, and so were those around me. But through it all, God continued to seek me, love me, and save me. In Him, I was more than all the times I'd fallen. It didn't own me or define in any way who I was. He showed me that I was treasured as His child. No matter how far I ran from Him, He chose me again and again, and He covered me in His grace. I say all of that to say that a lot of times I feel like we struggle with this grace. We feel like we're too far gone and that God couldn't forgive us for something that we've done. But that's not true. We're not defined by our past, present, or future struggles because God sees through all of that to the beautiful women that He created us to be. And a beautiful woman is one who is at rest in her relationship with God, instead of a striving woman who is caught up in being who others tell her she should be. We are defined by all the wonderful ways God created us and equipped us for the life he calls us to. Our identity is in the way he sees us. He knows our hearts and he loves us all as his own because we are his own. He sees who we truly are in Christ, and even when we feel too far gone, he still shows up and chooses us. He saves us by his grace so that we can use our stories to better ourselves and those around us. No bad thing goes to waste. No sin is too great to be forgiven. We are restored by his saving grace. It says in Lamentations 3:22-23 that the steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. His mercies are new every morning, and he has a plan for each of us. Thank you so much again for listening and letting me be a part of this amazing weekend.
Hi, I'm Ava Cavender, and I will be a junior this upcoming school year, and I'm just so thankful for this opportunity to speak and for this weekend and hearing about all the amazing women. So we were each given verses, and mine was John 1:11-13, which says, "He came to his own, and his own people did not receive him. But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God." The words that really stuck out to me in this verse, and what we're going to be focusing on today, are the words children of God. What do we find our identity in? Maybe it's something small, like a characteristic or gift that God has given you, such as sports, academics, or a job. But why these things are great, and it's good to acknowledge that God has given you these things. It's important to find our root of our identity as our children of God. But that's really hard sometimes, especially when the world can seem so overwhelming and so loud in our ears. I got baptized the summer before 5th grade, and after I got baptized, I remember feeling so secure and so confident in who I was and in my faith. I knew my identity was in the Lord, and I thought that my faith could never change. I was always going to feel this good about God and my relationship with him. I was wrong. Then school started, and as you all probably remember, middle school were not your best years. And that was my first year of middle school. And I really began struggling with my identity and who I was in God. I really remember feeling like I didn't have a purpose where I was, and I didn't understand why he had made me the way that I was. And I had a really hard time believing that I was there and that he had a plan for me. I remember feeling so overwhelmed and just so defeated. It was so hard to find my identity in him because he felt so distant in my life. Especially with these smaller things that we can tend to find some of our identity in, such as sports. We can spend so much time doing them and playing them and really just dwelling in them. It can feel so impossible for us to find our identity in something that doesn't always feel like it's there. In the same way, the only way to find your identity in God is by centering him in your life. You can do this by spending time with his people, spending time in his word, and reminding yourself of the promises and who he has made you to be. And the beautiful thing about this is we aren't perfect. And the reality is we're going to mess this up. But because of his love and his grace, he has allowed us to mess this up and still have the title children of God. And in verse 12, he even says, you have a right to be a child of God. And a right is not something that you earn. It's just something you're born with. And so God is saying, in my eyes, you are my child. And there's nothing you can do or say that will change that. You still get to be his child, even when he is so distant in your life and even when he is so close. You don't get to decide whether or not you're God's child in his eyes. He's already made that decision for you. However, what you do get to decide is whether you choose to accept the title child of God. And when you accept this title, you're allowing him to become the center of your identity, which soon will become the center of your life. And as I said earlier, we don't always do this well, but his grace allows us to mess up. But at the end of the day, he was there and he never left us, even when we felt like we had messed up too much. Even when he felt a mile away, and even when he felt so close in your life. By letting him be the center of your identity, and by truly seeing you are a child of God, It causes our identity to be stable, and it changes the way we view ourselves, view our relationship with others, and view our relationship with God. It changes the way that we're able to present ourselves in the world. Because we are children of God, and we were gifted with that right from the Lord, we can show others God's love, His light, and show how He has truly changed us and changed us for the better. So what I want to leave you with today is you are a child of God. And even if you're struggling to see that in yourself, He still sees that in you. The Creator of the whole world and everything beautiful has chosen you as His daughter and His child. And if He can see the beauty in us, then why can't we see that beauty in the amazing person that He has made according to His purpose and His glory? So remember, you are a daughter of the King. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Hope. I am the daughter of Charles and Laura Robertson, and I graduated from high school in May, and I will be attending Harding University in the fall. And I was given Colossians 3:12 through 14 to study this weekend. And coincidentally, those verses are actually the theme for Impact this year, and that's the summer camp that Teenside went to in June. And at first I was a little disappointed to get them, just because we've already spent a whole week talking about it, and I was like, there's nothing else to say. I mean, we've already said everything. But I've realized that this is actually an incredible opportunity for me to share what I've learned. So here we go. Colossians 3:12 through 14 says, "Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Bear with each other and forgive one another if any of you has a grievance against someone. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. And over all these virtues put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity." So I'm going to break this down into 3 parts. So let's start at the beginning in verse 12. We are chosen, holy, and dearly loved. And little side note, I've learned that holy doesn't necessarily mean perfect, that you do things right all the time. It means that you're set aside for a special purpose, that God has purpose for you. And those words have a lot of weight. So I want us to think about that for a minute. And I know that it's a little weird when people ask you to do this, but I want everyone to close your eyes. Close your eyes. Okay, just think about this. You are chosen, you're holy, and you're dearly loved. Your thoughts, your secrets, and your mistakes are all laid before God. And He looks right into your eyes and says, "I dearly, unconditionally, recklessly love you, despite all of that. I choose you. I have a special purpose for you." Okay, you can open your eyes now. Hold on to that feeling you just felt. When I think about those words, I feel safe and secure and fulfilled. And that's exactly what it means to be a child of God, just like Ava talked about. And we don't really think about that often enough. All right, so now let's move on to the second part of our verse. Where is it? Paul goes on to say that as a result of this amazing identity we have, we need to put on compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, patience, and forgiveness. And we need to bear with one another. And I don't know about you, but that list is very daunting. How am I supposed to put on all these values every day and remember to do them all in every interaction? And when I'm really hungry and tired, how am I supposed to still do them? And in my overachieving mind, it's almost like a challenge. I wake up and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do better today, and I'm going to be kinder today, and it's going to be great. And it works sometimes. But here's the problem. I fail. I don't always put on these qualities in the right way. I take out my frustrations on my sister and my family. I get bossy and stubborn when people don't do things the way I want them to, or when they don't do things up to my standards. I get impatient with the slow driver in front of me. And here's the worst one. I think I've got everything under control. And I pretend like I've got everything under control. And I don't. I can never be kind enough or compassionate enough or generous enough. It's an endless cycle of I'm not doing enough. And here's the issue with the mindset that I just described. It's all about me. I said the word I about 10 times, and I did not mention Jesus' name once. And how often do I read this list of qualities and think, this is all up to me. To be a good Christian, I have to do all these things right. And I'm here to tell you that that is a lie. That's a lie. That is pride blinding you. Your life is not about you or what you've done. It's about God. I'm not enough on my own. Jesus makes me enough. Jesus says, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. And that's from 2 Corinthians 12:9. But in order for Jesus to work in me, I have to let him in. I have to surrender my life to him. And I don't just mean being baptized, because that is the first step, but it's just the first step. I have to give up my desires and my emotions every single day to the Lord. And in Luke 9:23, Jesus says, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me. You have to surrender. As I'm sure all of you know or have heard, senior year of high school is crazy. I know that this is such a small part of my life, and there are so many other things that are going to happen, but it's felt huge and it's felt scary. And I've had to make all these crazy decisions, and I've had to think about scholarships and money, and I've had to pretend to be an adult, but also savor my last moments as a kid. And I've had to do a little bit of schoolwork, not much, just little. And my energy was completely depleted. I had nothing left. And then summer hit, and it hit hard. In between all the camps and the vacations and all the things, I only had 1 week at home, and instead of resting like I should have, I was worrying about all the college things that I haven't done yet. And I haven't been seeking God personally as much as I wish I did, or as much as I've been pretending to. And thankfully, we have a God who continuously pursues us, even when we don't feel it, because we are so dearly loved. In the middle of all the craziness, God has been pursuing me. He has put the word surrender on my heart this summer. Over and over and over again, the word just keeps popping up in different places. I've heard it in lessons and in worship and in conversations and just in my mind. And every time I'm like, oh, there it is again. Like, that's our word. Yay. It's so cool. And at one particularly emotional moment at Impact, it was a crazy time. And I wrote down all of the times that God had given me the word surrender and what I thought God was saying. So here's an excerpt that I'm going to read from what I wrote that night. Here we go. What if God is revealing my problem? Ever since the craziness of senior year began and I've had to make these huge life-altering decisions, I've been trying to control everything. Not a huge surprise, really. That seems to be a trend in my life. And here we are again, me pretending I have everything all together. I may have held it together so far, but these last couple weeks my hold has begun to slip. I'm so weary, so weak, so unmotivated. I'm trying to carry a burden that's not mine at all. It's God's. He's in control, not me. Life isn't about me, it's about God. I know these things in my head, but my heart still doesn't understand. So now the hard part, surrender. There's a lot more to that. Proverbs 3:5-6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. We are called to submit to God. We're called to surrender. So now that we've established that we need to surrender, my mind goes back to that list of qualities in our verse. I'm like, don't we still have to, like, how does surrendering work with putting them on? Like, how does this all work? And here's what I've learned. When I surrender to Jesus, he produces those qualities in me and through me. It's not up to me. The pressure is off. You aren't called to be perfect. You're just called to give your every moment and your every thought, your every worry and desire to Jesus. Come to him as you are. But here's the thing about surrender. It's really, really hard. It's really hard because it makes us vulnerable, and we don't like to be vulnerable. And one thing I've learned recently is that surrender isn't a formula. You can't fix your pride or your control issues in a day. It's a lifelong struggle. It's a daily process. And you will stumble. You'll make mistakes. There's still going to be a war between your human desires and your flesh and the spirit. And I can't really give any practical steps for surrender because I'm just me, and I'm still searching, and we all have different journeys. But I will say this, along with the concept of surrendering, I've learned this summer that I struggle a lot with pride, like a lot with pride. And pride has been the barrier to me admitting that I need to surrender because I think I have it all together. So I would say that the first step to surrendering is admitting to God and yourself and others that you need God. You can't do this. You're broken. Yeah. Okay, so we still have one more part of the verse left. We're almost there. Verse 14 says, "And above all else, put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony." We're told to put on love above everything I just talked about, above all the list of qualities and the surrendering and all the things. And here's why. 1 John 4:8 says, "Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love." When you surrender to God, you're allowing him to teach you what love is. And as a result, you learn who he is and who you are. Okay, here are some things to remember. First of all, you are chosen, you're holy, and you're dearly loved, and that is your identity as a child of God. Number 2 is that the Lord is inviting you to surrender to him so that he can produce those fruits through you. It's not up to you. And number 3 is the first step to surrender is admitting that you need God. The Lord is so faithful, and he makes a promise in James 4:8. Come near to God, and he will come near to you. So draw near. He will meet you. Surrender. And thank you.